Tell us about the early stages of when you started writing, even before Pink. I mean, you've done dialogues for some of the films. It's the same team, right? Kahani.
Suresh is a common name, as in Suresh was my co-writer on Kahani and then D-Day as well.
Okay.
So initially I started because I started at a time when there were directors from say a different section who would not normally be Hindi film directors, and they came from different parts of India. So I started as kind of collaborating with them on the Hindi dialogue. So that's how I did a say home delivery and Kahani with Sujoy, and Nikhil also predominantly wrote in English, so I did D-Day with him. So initially, largely it was about either contributing dialogue independently or adapting their English dialogue to what would eventually be a Hindi film. That's how it was initially, and then later, sometimes it was an adaptation of a short story. BA Plus, for example, was an adaptation of the Railway Auntie, and came from the Delhi Nor selection. Uh, but then, since D-Day, we did everything as in story, screenplay, dialogue. In post about 2013-14, then I started getting offered independent projects. So that's how I did Pink and films which were essentially solo credits after that. As in, it would either I would kind of ideate on my own, then pitch and subsequently develop the whole script, or take an idea from the producer or the director and then kind of do the whole thing.
Atika, you also work with directors, but then you go back and do your own writing on your own, right? You talk about that process?
I think my process is a process of uh, relentless rejection and then sort of like salvaging something out of each rejection and then building on from there. So I think literally I would look at myself as a screenplay writer who trained from the film school FTII and who had like two screenplays, one half-written treatment, all were about women. And so I come to Bombay with that, and then it's a very like it's a period of like where you're basically shown the mirror and the reality that this is not going to happen for a while. So people would be interested in like meeting you, but then they would not be interested in producing your stuff. In all of that process, I think that this struggle was very intense the first 2.5 years, and what I understood was that while people would not respond to the narratives that I had, this was around, I'm talking about 2008, between 2008 and 2010, I would still get a call back for me to collaborate on their projects, and even if I had like a conflict or a little argument or a little tiff with somebody, or an ideological difference that I had with somebody in a meeting, I remember that would become a strange kind of like a invitation for them to remember me and to call me when they would do something interesting. This is exactly there were no agents, there was not enough work. There were few cliques and lobbies. There was no OTT at the time. I was actually beginning to work in Bombay, and there's only one most redeeming quality about myself, that I'm very clear about what I want. And what I don't want, I don't want. So I think that has been just a personality trait right from the beginning. It's also a cause of extreme misery in my personal life. But because that has just been my approach generally to life, what it helped, it sort of auto-subtracted a lot of the other stuff. That there was that clarity that there's only that much I can do, and there's only those many opportunities. So when those things would appear, I would know that I have to give it everything. So for example, if I have been asked to write 2 episodes in a larger series for someone, or like do just dialogue adaptation for somebody, like these were the early jobs. And because I knew that I'm taking that up because I really believe in this. This is the kind of film that I want to see in whichever capacity they're asking me to join in. So it doesn't matter if I am not writing the story, if it's not exactly the film that I have fully written. whatever manner I can sort of like have my voice spelled out, I'm gonna just do my best. So that's how Margarita with a Straw happened. Like I was brought in as a additional sort of dialogue writer, and then I think we ended up doing a lot more. We saw the drafts changing and evolving, and I think it became the film that it took the time that it took to release in India. And then I can't believe sometimes when people would say, how can one film change your life? But it did, because I immediately began to get calls from similar sort of allies who were doing similar sort of niche work. And then one film led to the other. So I, the process has always been there are two parts to every process. One is your craft, which you need to constantly work on, and I think the other is to have a deeper understanding of your own life philosophy, and I think they go hand in hand. So that is how I think I have approached my life, my career, my work, the choices that I've made, and in every project that I did on my own, and the failures and the struggles and the frustrations that came with that, or when I was working with others and trying to salvage whatever we could in terms of ideology or like narrative or voice of the film that we were doing. So I just go with that, and this has taken me 15 years and like what 10, I think 10 odd films, yeah. So that's been my process.
It's good. Thank you. Suman, you work very differently. You work with a team at all times, right? Especially when you're doing the series. No, you have to press that.
Yeah, by and large, I've worked only with Rajan DK. All the shows that you mentioned,
Yeah.
Family Man, 3 seasons, Farsi, Guns N' Gulabs.
Guns N' Gulabs, yeah.
But I've also wrote and directed my own film. So it's more like I'm okay with anything because I want money. So, guys, you need to wake up, man. You guys are like, come on, make some noise. No? Yes. Oh, you're alive. Yes. Well done. Yes. Thank you. I'm a stand-up comic. I need it, yeah, please. Don't die on me. So I think it works both ways, and it has its own challenges. There is more self-doubt when you're doing it just by yourself. But when you're working with the likes of Raj and DK, what happens is you feed off each other's energy.
But there are other writers also in the room, right?
We have dialogue writers.
Yeah.
Like mostly it's Sumit Arora.
Yeah.
He's written the dialogues. Like what Ritesh said, we write it in English, neutral English, and Sumit will come and write the cultural equivalent. Sometimes even he punches up because dialogues are a key part of a narrative. But it's not true. Only I've heard like the Russo brothers have like some 13, 14 writers in their writers' room. There is one guy whose job is to just watch formatting, and one person is grammar. But we don't have the luxury here. First of all, writers don't get paid that well in Bombay. So we say, yeah, writer's room, but there are only 3 people there. Like, usually it's Raj, DK and I. And in Farsi, Sita Menon came out. So it's 3-4 people. So it's not like writer's room. It's like, when you say room, it's like conditions apply. Bombay wala room. It's not. You know how small the rooms are in Bombay, right?
Yeah, Sita Menon's worked with him before also.
Yeah.
Suman Rama has also worked with him. Yeah. Question that sort of Anupma had sort of asked me to ask earlier. And irrespective of how you guys are working, whether it's in a team or all by yourself or in conjunction with your director or something like that, where do the characters come from? And I'm very curious if you can, in one instance, tell us about some character that you created and you went to the director and that became then a prominent part of the project. If you can think of any film, Pink or, आपने बहुत सारी फिल्में लिखी हैं जी.
So I'll probably start with D-Day. You'll understand it a lot better. So at that time, the idea was there that this was largely about a sort of an extraction and this was the world. But there was nothing to rest it on. So Suresh had generally got a picture that day which was of a Dopchham Saloon. Now, for those who don't know, Dopchham Saloon is a barber shop set under a tree. Basically, the mirror hangs onto the tree, and there's a chair kept in front, and that's a Dopchham Saloon. Now, during our research, we had happened to read about that earlier, in absence of tracking and satellite technology, you largely would kind of make a barber near the cantonment and an asset, because all the army officers would come in for a haircut, and that's how they would be assigned, and they would watch troop movement and things like that. So that character, Irfan's character in D-Day, that was actually the sort of building block, the resting stone for everything. That what if this guy is not an asset 1 over? What if this is somebody who's gone from here, settled in, adjusted to the society there, whether out of obligation or whether to keep up the front, has got married, has a Pakistani wife and then a child, and because of hitting his middle age is now suddenly afraid of dying in the process. What happens to his family then? And he asks for an out from the job that he was initially sent there for. And usually the agency for such assets who have been there for a long time, they are considerate that they have certain unaudited funds and they can help him settle elsewhere. And right when that opportunity comes, what if the job shows up? So would he choose this or would he choose that? Now, from a man who's kind of Indian but has a Pakistani wife and a child and is very concerned about their future, how would he essentially behave? When there is something that he can just leave and achieve what he wants, but feels obligated about fulfilling the assignment that he was on there for. So sometimes you can start with a character and it can come to a story, which also happens, and it can remain character driven in spite of there being somewhere the sense of a plot in that. But you're not really interested in that. I mean, even if there were no riddles, no MacGuffins, you'd be happy just watching the character. But sometimes in order to tell a story, you really need to come up with a character. So this happened in the case of D-Day, that there was a clear idea of the setting, but the story came from the character.
Atika?
Kind of like resonate with what Ritesh said. In my case, I am the writer who's always telling my director to create less characters, because I need to deepen the intimacy and the interrelatedness between the world that has already been created. So actually, we don't need more characters. There's no hard and fast to this. But sometimes we have just not thought through the characters that have been created. And maybe this is just me, and I'm not saying this is data, but then if it adds up to it, most of the time the women characters are not thought through. So there is a big, large universe that's just left unexplored, and once you start deepening that shit up, there's so much more that opens up. Like especially like even in Sahela, which I know you have seen, for example, the story was from the perspective of the man who's going through this quandary of like, should he come out to his wife? And that was it. And there was no understanding of what the woman will go through. And I think what I did was, while I gave dignity to the main story, I knew that there was no story unless you see how it actually plays out in the woman's life. So everything that came out of Nitya's world in that film came from what I thought would be the experience of losing love. The same thing I can say for Agra. I think all the female characters were very, they were pinned down to the male gaze till I had to like see them respond to actually a pervert vision. Like, how will the women react to this? How will they negotiate with it? So for me, a lot of the story exploration came from what was already there, but it was not thought through. And I think that's true for almost everything that I've done. That's for me. Actually, I'd like to subtract, because I feel there's sometimes like this, the one inferior way of approaching screenplay is to continue to create more characters. So sort of like somehow fill in the theme superficially instead of actually understanding that you've not cracked through the story sort of engine between the principals, and maybe that's what I do.
If you cut a character, then
In fact, my process is to merge characters.
that's what I said, you merge them.
I just merge characters. Like sometimes there are 4 characters, they can be played by 1 character. Like there are four things that the character needs to do, and why do we need them? Because there's so much more drama and intrigue and psychological terror that you can create in somebody who you repeatedly play scene after scene, because that creates engagement. So.
I believe that writers are, by their nature, they observe human nature a lot. And that's one place where because you're so observant, it's like, I liken writers, storytellers, like bird watchers. In the sense that a bird watcher can spot a bird sitting, in the foliage, and he or she can see it very clearly, but the 100 people behind them, they won't be able to see. Even if he points, it's right there. Because I think it's a bone that you develop over a period of time, over years. That's one. And two is, like I said, because you observe so many people, like for example, Srikanth Tiwari of Family Man. Raj's uncle used to work as an undercover policeman, I think, and when they used to go on train journeys, whenever, how people chat you up, so they used to chat this uncle up, and this uncle used to come up with various job descriptions. Every single time, every single journey, it's a new job description. So that kind of fed into Srikanth Tiwari, portrayed by Manoj Bajpayee. That's one. Also, sometimes the other thing is that, both of them said, sometimes the story, you need a character to get the real story out. For example, I'll keep this short. So I had this idea of a film where 70s small town Tamil Nadu, the face of anti-Hindi imposition protest, there is this guy, and to get the girl that he wants, he has to learn Hindi, right? Wow, what a conflict, right? But I wasn't happy with it, because how long will we keep seeing the guy getting the girl? It's boring, at least to me. So we were thinking what to do with it. Suddenly, I said, wait a minute, what if that man is actually a woman, a young woman? Now the story completely changes. Now the story is the face of the anti-Hindi imposition protests in 1970s small town Tamil Nadu has to learn Hindi to break her engagement. The story is, now I said, oh my God, there's so much. We are talking about imposition. So the question that I'm asking through my film is that, if you really think that, imposing Hindi is wrong, then you cannot be imposing a dress code on women. You cannot decide how much a woman should earn or what she should wear. So suddenly I got that nice, and I was being very selfish. This is a great, better story to tell than guy getting the girl, and there is something.
It's actually radical. It's a radical act to actually choose to learn the language, to choose the person you love.
But all that we have seen is, how weddings are considered the happy ending in Indian cinema for a long, long time. Not anymore, right? But nobody tells you what happens after that. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that, a girl choosing, 70s that too, choosing to breaking her engagement suddenly makes her progressive, brave, and what have you. That's one way of, it's a Stephen King technique. I'm a big fan of Stephen King. So, he gives this example in his book called, if you're interested, on writing a memoir to the craft by Stephen King. So if you're interested in writing, please pick up the book and read it. On Writing by Stephen King. I know why I'm pimping it.
How engaged do three of you